Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cocktails and Rocktails with me, your most notorious groupie, Allison Rouse, author of this little guy right here. Where you can get these other books, my merchandise, which is some pretty funny merchandise, down in that link tree description. So go hit that link tree, hit myself up, see what you can find, because you never know when you put your finger on me what will happen. Anyway, and as always, thank you guys for all the love, all the support, all the kindness, all the friendships, everybody sharing your stories. I love it. I love that we're all coming together and really kind of bonding in ways we haven't bonded in a long time. So I absolutely love that. Thank you guys so much for really truly making this an incredible family. I absolutely love you. Thank you with all my heart and soul. Truly, I can never say it enough. So that's why I always like to start out with you guys, because it is all about you guys. Thank you for everything, truly. And speaking of truly thankful for everything, you know, I get a lot of my ideas from you guys. You guys put up a lot of really great suggestions about what you want to hear. And I don't think I might have done an episode about this a long time ago, but somebody wanted to hear what I think about Decline of Western Civilization Part 2, the metal years. So we're going to do that, and because it's, you know, the metal years, and we all know about the heavy metal shop here in Salt Lake City. It is infamous to rock stars all over the world. A little more than one of the rock stars in this little documentary. We'll get to talking about that. So, okay, this is an Imperial American black lager, so it's going to have the light crispiness of a lager, but it's going to be that dark kind of rich flavor. Ooh, yeah. I love it when it spooges. Just not on me. Or in my mouth, Kip Winger. Okay, so everybody grab your blackness, kick up your feet, and let's have a little cocktails and rocktails. I totally poured this wrong. I poured it with too much head. Just when you think you can't get too much head. Alright. Cheers, big ears. Hold on, I'm going to let it settle for a minute. Okay, that's close to perfect head. So, alright, cheers, big ears. Oh, that one is so good. I always do enjoy our local breweries, because Saltfire, who does this one of our locals, so good. Okay, there we go. Now I can take an even bigger drink. Like I said, that rich kind of taste of a stout, but that crispiness, almost a sweetness that you get with a lager. So super delicious. Okay, so me and my notes are ready to go. So Decline of Western Civilization was made by Penelope Spheris. If you guys don't know, most people do. We've all seen this movie, no matter what era we come from, age we are. You know, if you're younger, into the 80s, and you haven't seen it, you should see it, but realize it's another fluff piece about Los Angeles. This is another documentary that was centered around LA, because this is why people think that rock and roll in the 80s was nothing but LA, and it was all LA and the best scenes, the best groupies. Yeah, bullshit. We know the truth around here. Don't we, ladies from Texas, from Idaho, from Florida, from New York? Yeah, hells yeah. From St. Louis, from, you know, wherever. Seattle. I was up in Seattle too. But us 80s ladies, we know that it wasn't necessarily all about Los Angeles, because I think a lot of these documentaries are very geared towards the LA scene, so that's all we kind of know. But was LA just as crazy busy with the 80s scene, the rockers, the groupies, the metal band chicks, you know? Yeah, it was, but so was Salt Lake City, so was Seattle, so was New York City, so was Atlanta, Georgia, so was Detroit, so was, you know, Chicago, St. Louis, Fargo, for fuck's sake. There was a lot of, I mean, this is defining the era at the time. You know, we all came together for music, we all came together to see our favorite bands. Like back then, you could camp out with your general admission ticket the night before the concert, and your parents were okay with that. They'd send some of their kids with their little RVs and campers, you know, and little tents and stuff, and they were fine. You know, we could do stuff like this. And I think Decline of Western Civilization kind of embodies the freedom that we had at the time. But like I said, it's just very, very much geared towards promoting the LA scene. You know, Penelope Spheris, she did Wayne's World and stuff. I think she kind of got really boxed in because I haven't seen her do, you know, she did 1 and 3, which is Los Angeles punk scene. Like, that's all she's ever done is kind of LA-based stuff. So I don't think she could really do... I don't understand why she didn't break her own barriers and go out and look at the metalheads of the 80s in other places in Los Angeles, because Los Angeles was atypical. We all knew what it looked like. It was in everything. Los Angeles is the center of the world when it's really not, but I think it kind of it was another fluff piece glorifying the LA scene when the LA scene was not the killerest one, was not the killer one. Yeah, a lot of record companies were looking out of LA, but they were also looking in other places, New York, Salt Lake City, Texas, you know, New Mexico, wherever. London, a lot of music. So it was kind of LA, you know, glam metal rock that was derived from the New York, from the punk scene, stuff like that. So I think that metal was something bigger than LA. I don't think that the 80s really gets its due just by focusing on one scene. And that's all everybody thinks, that, oh, Los Angeles, I want to go to LA, I want to go to the Rainbow. We all had our Rainbows. We all had our Roxy's. We all had our whiskeys. The Speedway Cafe, like here in Salt Lake City, was second only to CBGB's. Bathrooms were dirtier, though. So I think for starters, that it was just too localized into the LA scene, that it should have been something more about, you know, heavy metal parking lot kind of, excuse me, really set a precedence as well, because like I said, it wasn't Los Angeles and heavy metal parking lot. So I think Penelope Spheris just kind of stayed within her own ego and comfort zone when she made it, because that's all she's ever done is LA. And in all fairness, I loved the first Decline Western Civilization. My friend Karen was in it because she was a girlfriend to one of the lead singers of the punk bands. Super intelligent woman, biochemist, ended up moving here to Salt Lake City, living in the Harvard Yale area, which is a higher end. I mean, basically really the kind of antithesis that you would see in SLC punk. So, okay, let's keep moving on. Now, just to prove that Los Angeles was not the end-all be-all scene, especially when it came to groupies, Salt Lake City was very fucking present in this movie, because Chris Holmes jumped in the pool and said it. What every 80s rocker knew at the time. You look at tours back then, and there was 2 and 3 days off here in Salt Lake City. Not because, I mean, we do have great outdoor, we've got great skiing, we've got great restaurants, stuff like that in Salt Lake City, but they had the best groupies. Groupie capital of the world. And Chris Holmes says it. So in a movie about LA, us Salt Lake City ladies, we're fucking right there. The best groupies in Salt Lake City. And no, he didn't have 4 Salt Lake City women at a time. He's had 4 groupies at a time, but not in Salt Lake City. Like, he was with Boucher. Now, Kristen and I did make out with Chris Holmes. I mean, we hung out with Wasp quite a bit, but we never slept with any of them. But when Chris Holmes was engaged to Lita Ford, and Lita was playing with Yngwie Malmsteen in Black and Blue, Chris was with her, and while Lita was on stage, Kristen and I made out with Chris on the side of the stage. Y'all think Lita Ford's badass? No. Kristen and I are badass because we're making out with her fucking fiance right in front of her. Neener, neener. Okay, that shouldn't be as funny as it is, but it is funny. And yeah, the groupie capital of the world was mentioned in a movie about LA. What all the rockers knew. Chris Holmes said it. So, okay, now let's talk about some of the bands that were in there. So, first of all, there was Odin. And if anybody has watched this movie, you watch the guys in Odin, and they're talking about his assless chaps and how he's so hot and all the other girls want him, which might be the reason his wife is so goddamn clingy throughout the whole movie. Like, seriously. And how is that working out for you today, Odin? You guys were going to be the biggest rockers in the world. I think for me, this documentary really brought out the ego of LA. Because I'm from LA and we're the fucking kings of Gazaris and the Roxy, you know, so we play at the Whiskey regularly. So we're going to be the biggest rock stars in the world. And their egos, especially when they're sitting in the hot tub and they're just like, oh yeah, I'm not going to do anything. And that came through a lot of different of the men, especially that they interviewed throughout the whole documentary. Odin and London being the biggest braggarts of them all. Now, and London kind of made a parody of itself. I thought they were really funny in the movie, though. I mean, Nadir Priest kind of really did turn up the notch with the coke schmocaine and stuff like that, and I think he really tried to, you know, play the rock and roll part like he was Mick Jagger, because you can even hear it in his twang and his voice, you know. But like I said, I think London was probably the funniest guys. Now, Nadir Priest has said, because there is a follow-up, which we'll talk about in a bit, Nadir has said, or Nader, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name, he requested me as a friend on Facebook years ago, so we're kind of just friends that never interact because we're completely different. Anyway, but he's in his ego, I'm not in his ego type of thing. Like I said, I think, but again, I'm, you know, by compliment, I thought they were the funniest because they lived in a motorhome, and Nadir's like, oh, money was never an issue for me back then, but I did get paid $1,000. So he still kind of has that typical LA ego that was really brought out in this movie, because like I said, with everyone, who's the guy with the blue shirt, the brown hair, he's kind of got the baby lips and the baby look, he's like, oh, I'm gonna be a rock star. And every single one of them, oh, there's no other choice, we're great, my band's the best in LA, we're gonna be a rock star, we're gonna be the biggest band in the world. Which, great for them, I love their confidence and their attitude, but how's that working out for you? How's that? Where's Odin? I even tried to look up Odin on Facebook and stuff, and all I kept getting was a bunch of Swedish bands or, you know, death metal bands, stuff like that. But like I said, the wife of the lead singer of Odin really made her presence known in every fucking aspect of this. That is her insecurity, because she, you know, she will throw off her earrings and toss off her heels and beat the crap out of any woman that even tries to look at her husband sideways. Like, there was Gazaris. Okay, now Gazaris used to be I've been there a few times. LA was never my scene. I more liked to go to New York or Chicago or London, you know. LA was just what you always thought it was going to be, you know, the rainbow. For me, LA was Psy. It was John Entwistle. It was Michael Miglieri. It was Scarlett Miglieri. You know, that was LA for me. It wasn't like the rock scene. If anything, we avoided that big time, you know, when I was there. We kind of stayed within the family type of thing. But, where was I going? Oh, so the wife of the lead singer of Odin, yeah, even during Gazaris, like where they had the Miss Gazaris pageant, which I miss Gazaris. Like, what is that? Only in LA. That's like having the Miss Rafters and the Miss Speedway Cafe competition. Although the Miss Speedway Cafe competition would be way more fun, because there'd be fucking straight edgers, punk chicks, rocker chicks, groupies. There'd be all kinds of plethora of people. But so anyway, so while they're judging this Miss Gazaris competition, in the front row, you've got Nadir Priest, you've got the lead singer of Odin, you've got a couple other guys from Odin and a couple other, the big bands, you know, and it's so hilarious because here's the wife, she's got her arm around him, and she's just rubbing him, and she's just like making sure, like, she's looking around like she's a Secret Service agent and making sure ain't nobody gonna hurl their panties at him. So, and I wonder if they're still married. Like I said, I was trying to find where they are now, and I only found one little thing. But we'll talk about that in a bit. So I thought that was hilarious throughout the movie, and especially where in the hot tub, she's like, I'm his wife, and he's like, I don't mess around. It's like, I wonder if they're still married. And if he ever did mess around, which something tells me. But Odin was really pretentious in who they were. They just were that typical. They really shined that LA ego into the movie, which carried on through several other of the people interviewed. So, and I think London, they were, but I think with London, they had a bigger and better sense of humor about themselves. And fine, you know, we may not be the biggest rockers in the world, although Nadir DePriest does think everybody in the world knows his name. No, honey, they don't. Oh, it's just, it may be a lot of people because of this movie, but not because of London, which was the training ground for like Nikki Sixx and Tracy Guns and I think guys from Guns N' Roses and stuff. So, but it was kind of funny, and there was I have to say this, because then we're gonna move on to the female aspect of this movie, which I think Penelope's spirit, I think Penelope really just kept a surface kind of ego type of attitude. She approached it with her opinion and what she wanted it to be done, not with an open mind. So there is a band that was in there. They're all rented these classic cars, and they're driving all these classic cars, and they're from Detroit. And one of the guys, he's a good looking guy, dark hair, long dark hair. He's got some little, you know, cop hat on, driving this red convertible vintage thing. And they started asking about the groupies. So they were like, he was like, well, you know, if I'm going to meet a girl and I find out she's been with this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy, I don't want to be with her, blah, blah, blah. Really? What about you being with this groupie, this groupie, this groupie, this groupie, this groupie? Y'all are in that same bed. Why is it okay for you to bed all the groupies, but the groupies are the whores? You know, and again, he brought that kind of misogynistic, one-sided attitude to the film, which did carry over, and I think that kind of was what Penelope was really going for, because I think that was kind of her opinion of the women at the time. I don't know, but this is just how it comes across to me, because she really played how the women who were in bands, like the ladies from Vixen were in there. There were a few other women who played in bands, which she really brought their kind of, the attitude, the strength, the no bullshit, kicking in that backstage door, rocker chick attitude to the women in the bands. She really showed that up and played that up, because she edited it. So she's editing it to her liking, to her desire, right? So she really played that, because then again, you have like the women at the Miss Gazzari's competition, and the girls go on stage and they get in their thong backs and their heels and their bras, and they dance around for the men while the men are all checking them off and grading them and shit like that. So when it came to the groupies, she really kind of showed, there was a couple girls she showed that were not in a band, but they were like, they're our candy. And it was the chick with the blonde spiky hair, and they kind of looked a little more Nancy Spungen, punk rock, kind of rock and roll. But they were like, oh yeah, they're our candy. We're going out, we're doing our thing, we're doing what the fuck we want. Those girls were a snippet compared to how she showed the women and portrayed the women, even through the way the rock stars' attitudes were towards, like the guy driving the car, going, well, I'm gonna fuck a bunch of groupies, but, you know, if I find out she's fucking all these rock stars and I'm just another notch, her value lowers. And that really, to me, was kind of the whole attitude of Penelope in the editing and the way she presented the film. Because, like I said, the way she presented the women who were in the rock band was almost as equal as the way she presented the men in the rock bands, because the men in the rock bands got a hell of a lot more screen time, a lot more credit, a lot more, you know, really getting to know them, as to where the ladies in Vixen got less screen time. Even though they rocked and they still had the same attitude as the groupies. Now the groupies, they got more screen time, but they kind of were put to the bottom of the barrel. Even the way she highlighted Chris Holmes, saying, you know, the best groupies are in Salt Lake City. I've had 4 of them at a time. No, he didn't have 4 at a time here in Salt Lake City. Maybe other places, most likely LA. But he did not have 4 of a hi beluga. He didn't have 4 of them at a time here in Salt Lake City, but she kind of made it seem like that's just what the groupies are. You know, they're just desperate. They'll just line up like that movie Rockstar portrays them. And I hate that because she really pitted the rock chicks against the groupies, even though the chicks in Vixen, they're not afraid of their own prowess either. They rocked it. Then when they were out on the road, they had male groupies. They had fun. You know, but that's one thing I really, really didn't like about it, because she did portray the groupies and the rock chicks as such different entities and different levels of respect, but the guys in the bands, Odin, London, Megadeth, Lemmy, Chris Holmes, you know, they had the most screen time. So she put the most credibility as musicians into the men. So, and yeah, like, what the hell is with that Gazzari's pageant? Like I said, that's just kind of like, huh. What, you know, why was this such a big thing in LA? And I never heard of it. Nobody ever heard of it. They acted like it was this worldwide competition, and Miss Gazzari, she gets to go into the club and drink for free, and she gets the attention, and it's really going to help my career. Oh. And what kind of career is being Miss Gazzari's gonna fucking help you with? You know, I mean, so I think, like, what, to be Miss Tropicana USA, Miss Hawaiian Tropics, which was a big deal back then, you know, be the swimwear model, which, you know, it's a very limited shelf life of a career, but cool if you can get it, and what you do after that, invest your money, open new businesses, whatever. But again, you know, this whole Miss Gazzari's and the way that she allowed the rockers to talk about the musicians or the groupies in a condescending way. Like, you know, Ricky Rackman was really funny about it. He's like, I like it. We don't turn the air conditioning on so the women dress skimpy. We like sluts. Well, you are a slut, Ricky Rockman, because you and I were in that same bathroom in New York City, you know, something on the fucking sink counter. So, and then, you know, Faster Pussycat talking about the groupies, you know, or Poison, Ricky Rocket, and talking about some girl trying to bang getting out of Bret Michaels' room. That was probably me, because we all know tap, tap, tap. If you're not good at the foreplay, you're not going to be good between the sheets. So I'm tapping out, you know. So it was such an allowance to really objectify the groupies in this as just kind of the disposable whores, which you know I hate, you guys. You know I hate it. This is why I'm really happy to have a voice for the 80s ladies that were not LA, that were not Decline of Western Civilization Part 2. There were actual strong women living their prowess and their choices while being independent in every aspect of their lives and not wanting to be a bikini model, which is fine if you want to be. I ended up in a lot of magazines I never thought I would. That was not like my big dream. I wanted to finish beauty college and open up my own salon, and then as I got older I wanted to go work for Sotheby's. So it's a very objectifying documentary altogether, in my opinion, because it really does kind of show the rockers who, you know, Ozzy is being a drunk, Lemmy, you know, she's asking, you know, I think she's kind of glorifying like the Lemmy, the Megadeth, stuff like that, Metallica. She's glorifying that. She's kind of making a parody out of the bands that were, you know, Odin and London and stuff, you know. But like I said, I think London was the funniest band that didn't take themselves too seriously, so good on them. I think they came across as the least pretentious assholes of the bunch, even though they were your typical La La Land band. So I kind of think she was very, very tunnel visioned, because she might have traveled the world, but everything she does is very much, I mean, let's look at Wayne's World. It's very much the LA rock scene. It's very much this, it's very much that, just like Decline of Western Civilization. I had hope for her when she was doing the punk years, because that was real raw, real crazy, real unhinged. As to the metal years was very, very much geared to an era, to a thought process, to a society's vision, because she may think she's all creative and new and looking like she's some sort of avant-garde director or real incredible, like, influential artist. This shows me how very typical she is in her brain when it comes to how she portrayed the different levels of rock and roll, you know, with the groupies being at the bottom of the barrel. And where was the Mr. Gazzari's pageant with the guys in their little elephant thongs flipping about and getting naked for the ladies? Like, why wasn't that? How come? Because Gazzari's, he's like, well, if you're 18, you can come in. But we all knew I was in there at 16. I was in the cat house at 16. You know what I mean? I was 23 when I was bent over at the Limelight by Ricky Rockman, though. So, and speaking of Ricky Rockman, now I did find one kind of follow-up of them talking about it. And it was like Nader, Ricky Rockman, and Penelope being interviewed by this one guy. And Penelope, Ricky looks like he's about to break out of his skin and kick some fucking ass. Like, you can hear Ricky Rocket talking, and in the background, and I'll put the link down in the description, in the background you kind of see Ricky Rockman, and he's kind of getting a little angry because you can tell what he's listening to Ricky Rocket say, and he's like going through the truth in his head, and some of it's there, some of it's not. So it's really interesting to watch Ricky Rockman again. I think he was still his most genuine self of the reunion. He was his most genuine self in the actual Decline of Western Civilization, the metal years. So I think Ricky Rockman, for me, kind of pulled through the best out of the years. Because Nader, and I'm so sorry again if I'm saying it wrong, Nader is still very much kind of that, the kids are grown up and everybody in the world knows who I am, still doing the London thing. I'd like to know who else is in the band. Like I said, maybe I should have looked at his Facebook page more over the years. But I was just never into the LA scene. It wasn't my thing. But like I said, even one of the most LA of LA rock stars, Chris Holmes, he said it. Best groupies were in Salt Lake City. Not one person said the best groupies are in LA. None. Not a single one. And I can see why they would think that, because they're very objectified in LA, even by another woman, which pisses me off, because we should all be standing by each other and holding each other up, women, men, and everybody in between. I don't care. You know, I mean, I think we should all be respecting each other. And the way she just kind of tore down the women and allowed other rockers to tear down the women and not have any rebuttals to say, hey, as a woman, this is my view of what I'm doing. No, she just put up the Gazzari's pageant where all the women are naked and spewing whipped cream on themselves on stage for all the men to sit there and grade them on and find out who was the 10 of the, you know, of the bunch, stuff like that. So that was, and it really objectified the 80s as being a bunch of dumbasses and people with being lazy and no ambition outside of being rock stars, you know. But, and some of them were, like I said, the one guy with the diamond headband, he's like, yeah, I'm going to spoil my girl. She's going to get diamonds and furs and this and this and that, because I'm going to be the biggest rock star in the world. But, yeah, where is he now? Couldn't find him. So we couldn't find the majority of these people unless they were already big names. Like, all of them, you know, Vixen, we know where they are. Priest, we know where he is. And no, the whole world doesn't know you, Nader. But, I haven't even thought about it until somebody suggested doing this episode again. So we know where Megadeth is. We know where Metallica is. We know where Ozzy is. We know where Lemmy's not. God rest your limbs. We love you. We miss you. And I think Lemmy came across. So the best people to come across in this documentary were Ricky Rockman and Lemmy, pretty much, because of course she had to have Ozzy, you know, shaking. She's showing him spilling the orange juice and stuff like that, because see what rock and roll does to you. It makes you a drug addict, you know, geriatric that's going through withdrawals or whatever. I just think there was a lot of stuff that was kind of geared, that was funny, but at the same time, it was, you look back on it now and I think, wow, she just really had her opinion. Because even during the reunion, they were talking about grunge. And to me, Ricky Rockman has become one of the biggest experts in rock and roll. He hosted Headbangers Ball. He had his own band. He's traveled. He loves music, all kinds of music. And they were arguing about the birth of grunge. Because Ricky was like, I don't think grunge ruined rock and roll, he just changed it. And she's like, I do. I think it was horrible because it was such an inward, hateful, of the hatred of themselves. Bitch, if it was inward, we would never have any of the songs, or Nirvana or Pearl Jam or any band who wrote songs that made you think that. I mean, like I said, I think Penelope Spheris, her creativity is extremely limited and her opinion is extremely biased. And it kind of was like, yeah, grunge, it didn't kill rock and roll. It just took it to the next phase. Rock and roll has its phases, and the glam metal phase was done. It was the 90s. Warrant didn't kill it. Nirvana didn't kill it. We just kept moving on. You know, and I have talked about this before about, you know, having gone from, you know, glam metal and, you know, the 70s rock and roll to like Metallica and Megadeth, because it was a progression of age and intellect and the music. You know, glam metal, great for fun, for summertime, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but then you get into thrash and, you know, Pantera and that type of music and Metallica and stuff, and they've got something to say. Something to make you think about. Some emotions that you might have gone through yourselves. So it's kind of an enlightening, and I think grunge was that next step. Because there's a dark side to all parts of our lives, and Penelope Spheris just hates grunge. Hates it. And her opinion is God to her. When Ricky Rockman, I have more respect for what he said, because he said basically what I just said. It was just a progression. It didn't kill anything. It was just time for glam to relinquish the crown to the next phase, which was actually thrash. Like, so, I mean, we had Metallica that killed. I think thrash really was most responsible for changing the glam metal scene into something different, because they came along long before grunge did. And Metallica and Megadeth and Testament and Anthrax, and, you know, they were selling out the arenas and not playing the clubs or the fairground size arenas and stuff like that. So I just think it was time, you know, and I just think Penelope Spheris was so wrong about how she portrayed grunge, because if it was such an inward thing that, and so is sex, so is drugs, so is rock and roll, so is the love for the music, so is the groupies. All these are inward things that are expressed outwardly, and grunge definitely gave us a dark side to our expression, kind of a more heavy side, but at the same time, a lighter side as well. It gave us the Seattle. It took, I think she was also kind of bitter because it took the music scene from LA Sunset Strip and moved it to Pike Street Place, First and Pike, downtown Seattle, because that became the biggest music scene, bigger than the LA music scene was for a long time. So I think, you know, the reunion, like I said, I'll put the link down in the description. I think it's still just kind of a bunch of people blowing their horn, except for Ricky Rockman, of all people, because like I said, I think Ricky has the most open opinions about music, about he said I had a blast making it. He's like, I just, you know, barely opened the cat house and, you know, this and that. He's like, and I was so excited to be on this. He's like, so it was a really big pivotal moment for him, and that is great. You know, I think that is awesome that it kind of took Ricky Rockman, but I think Ricky Rockman would have become the Headbangers Ball and all that on his own, with or without this, because he just does have a way of his love for music coming through everything he does, you know. So I love that about him. I think I just started following him on TikTok. But yeah, I think Ricky, during the reunion of the 4 people, I wish they would have tried to find the guys in Odin. Maybe they did. I wish they would have tried to talk to the ladies in Vixen, because there was not one woman at the reunion. No Miss Gazari, no wife of the lead singer of Odin, no lady from Vixen, not the 2 girls who kind of exerted what us 80s ladies were really doing, making it our fucking Playgirl world, you know. None of them. Not a single one. It was just Ricky Rockman, Nader, Penelope, Ricky Rocket, and the interviewer. So I'm kind of really disappointed, because I really did try. I wanted to find out where a lot of these people were now. So, but there's just nothing, because again, Penelope had to control everything so it fits her narrative. And she was kind of pissed off, and the way she bit back at Ricky Rockman for that, when he was like, nah, I don't think grunge killed the groupie scene, because it couldn't have. Thrash did, you know. So I think with not just the reunion, but also with the decline of Western civilization, I think there's a lot of misconceptions, because that's how she geared it for her. We all know documentaries are going to be geared by the person making them, and the editing is going to be done to her liking. So I think it's a very objectifying, I think it's a very pigeonholing, and I think it's a very limiting idea of what the 80s metal really was, because it wasn't just LA, you know. And I think that it was very degrading to the women that were very pigeonholed, even Vixen, and the guy bands put above them. So yeah, I think it was a very geared, objectified kind of. Although when I did see it, the premiere, I did go to the premiere here in Salt Lake and a couple other cities, and Danny and I stood up when Chris Holmes jumps in that pool and says the best groupies were in Salt Lake City. We were like, woo! Yes, we were! Yeah! You know? So we jumped up, and it was fun to watch when it came out, but at the end of the movie, we were just like, ugh. I think Singles really actually made women look better than this movie, the grunge movie Singles. So I did, like I said, and I think her misconception, because she's so stuck in her idea of, yeah, she might have showed thrash, but that's not glam metal. She might have shown Metallica and Megadeth on there, but thrash was, at the time that movie was made, thrash was the bigger popular band or type of music than glam metal, than Motley Crue. Still is. I mean, Metallica, the biggest band in the world. Megadeth still playing out there. I know that Motley Crue is, but let's face it, you guys, Motley Crue should have hung it up a long time ago. We do not need to see Neil the Seal. Vince Neil the Seal. If you're on TikTok, you know Neil the Seal. Anyway, but that's pretty much like, he can't sing anymore. He's shitty on stage. His voice was never that great. It was shot years ago. Motley Crue may still be playing, but no. So, but alright, you guys, tell me what you think of the movie. Tell me if you were in it, if you know anybody that was in it, where they are now. I would love to know where just the regular people that they interviewed are now, you know. I'd love to know where Odin is, if that lead singer's wife is still hanging on to her man like, those ass cheeks are mine, you know. Okay, big girl. But anyway, so yeah, let me know what you guys think of it down in those comments. Tell me what you think. Would you like to see an actual reunion? Because I know I would. I would like for them, because they had to sign release papers. And in this world of Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Google, you know, People Finder, whatever, I'm sure we could find at least a handful of the people in this. I would love to see the follow-up. of where are they now. Not just four very, notable people from the film, including the director, and all men. So we know who she respects more than women. Anyway, so yeah, tell me what you guys think. And as always, thank you to everybody who made it to the end of the episode. Thanks for listening to all my babble. You guys are awesome. And for those of you just hanging out and having a good time, not subscribed, just up in the nosebleeds, hanging out by the buses, kind of wondering what's going on, knock on the door, come backstage, become part of the family. Hit the share, hit the subscribe, become a member, hit my bells. And we'll see you next time on Cocktails and Rocktails. Oh, cheers, big ears.